all your financial aid figured out and also trying to figure out what your classes are. So with that, I'll kick it over to Paul to get us going. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Leah. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the ENVD summer webinar series. We are so excited to have everyone with us. Even though it's only June, we're already focused heavily on August and welcoming everyone to campus and to being part of environmental design. And today, we're just as Dylan and Aaliyah was saying, we're saying, this is just a little taste, a little welcome, give you an opportunity to start interacting with us, start getting excited, start getting ready for registration. We want to build that momentum as we go into the fall. So Dylan, next slide. Yep, next one. One more time. There we go. So I just wanted to start off with a little bit of interesting facts for you. So you are part of a very select group. This year we had a record 900 applications for our incoming class to environmental design. And this was the highest qualified class that we've had, just in terms of overall numbers. It was really a surprise. Just to give you an idea, that 900 number is about 150 over where we were previously. But the bigger number, 180, and we capped that. That is the most that we can have in a class just from our resources, so we don't have large classes. That'll give us about 600 environmental students total. So we kind of each year have a little adjustments depending on what everybody is, but you're one of a very small group of 180 out of about 900 that applied. So congratulations on being part of environmental design. But as I say, don't worry, we're still about connections. 180 may sound like a lot of people coming in, but we still only have studios that have a maximum of 20 students. And yes, we will be in person, back in studio. So you will have that in-person studio experience. You'll get to know 19 other students really, really well right off the bat, being in your little cohort for studio. You will make student connections, both with people in your own class, with upper division students that are providing mentorship, faculty. One of the things we really, really love about environmental design is from the time you come in as a first year, you are going to get connected with your faculty. You'll know them really, really well. You'll spend time with them in the classroom. So you'll be connected. You're not just going to be an anonymous face or name, which a lot of people worry about when they come to college. Each one of you will get known by a number of faculty. You'll have your advisors who you've already met, Fernando and Dylan and Aaliyah. Each one of them will know a group of you. So don't want you to worry about you're coming in as some big group. You are part of very small cohorts that we really try and build connections with. Next slide. So a couple of interesting facts. I always like to have some interesting facts about what is ENVD about? What are you joining? This is actually going to be our 51st year as a design program in the same location in our building. So you are really, I say, since we had a COVID year, I'm counting this next year as our 50th year. Part of our 50th year celebration that will be going on. That's a big time. It is not true. None of us have actually been here the whole 50 years, but a lot of us have been here quite a while. You're getting to be in a building that was built in 1949 for the purpose specifically of teaching design. So your design studios have been design studios going all the way back to 1949, even before the program was officially a program. So that's pretty exciting. The building that you're in was the first building after World War II that actually broke a little, experimented a little with our campus design. It had brick, it had concrete in it, so it's a unique building. And yes, it is true, the first floor was originally the bakery and the laundry. It's not anymore. That's a different story. But the upper floors, they've always been design studios. You're joining a program with the most environmental design alumni of any program in the country. So all over the country, there are environmental design alumni, which really translate to your professional career. What are we doing? What are we opening to? We have alumni that are in all different types of things, design professionals in every area, architecture, landscape architecture, planning, industrial design. All of these are open to you. We have people working in software companies. One of the things that you're going to find is your knowledge of graphic design, your knowledge of design principles are really going to be valued. They are valued by places such as Google, startup software design companies. We have business executives. A lot of you will be getting minors in different areas such as business. One of the senior executives at Starbucks is a ENVD alumni. Some of you will go into real estate, and some of you will decide to open new businesses that are things we haven't even thought of. All of these things are things that are provided by the foundation of what we do in environmental design. So I want you to go in with an open mind and ready to think about, what is it I want to achieve? We're ready there for you. So next slide. So I want to just, one of the questions that we often get is, what should I be doing over the summer to get ready for starting my first year? There is no need to prepare. There's no need to panic, right? We are not expecting you. We don't have a summer reading list for you. We don't have a bunch of review math classes for you to take. You do not have to worry about that. Everybody comes in at the same place on the first day, just part of ENVD starting first year. So what is first year going to be like? Well, there's a few things. You're going to have studio. You're going to layer and broaden is what I talk about. ENVD in design is about layering skills, layering knowledge, and broadening. The big difference between environmental design and, say, just a regular art major is that you're really layering technical, artistic, historic, all these different skills together. So you're going to have studio. You're going to do hands-on. You're going to get back familiar with glue, cardboard, pencils, drawing. It does have a purpose. You're going to learn design principles, but you're going to be hands-on right at the very beginning. But you're also going to take theory, lecture courses about design, design history. Again, this layering of knowledge. We're going to teach you technical skills throughout the year. You're going to start off really with hand drawing, and then you're going to get into 2D, but technical is going to be a really big part of things. You're going to have colloquium. We're going to have a lot of speakers come in talking to you about what's the new things in environmental design. And then you may have another class. You may have a general education class, science, math, or maybe a writing class. This will be your first semester. It'll be diverse. It'll be exciting. But I want you to make sure that you have you time, right? You've got to make sure that you keep time in your schedule, and you'll hear this from the advisors. Make sure you have time for your working out or whatever you want to do, you time. And then finally, you're going to have collaboration time. Working with your peers is a big part of this program. You're going to get connected. You're going to work together both in group projects, but more important, just learning from each other. All of this is going to come together to be a really, really intense but fun time. And that's what we want you to be prepared for. Get that energy up. Don't panic. No need to prepare. We're going to get you ready for the first day. All right. We look forward to you being here. Dylan, it's all yours.
Thank you, Paul. I'm going to pass over to Aaliyah to start talking about our summer checklist and a few reminders as we get prepared for our July registration space and orientation here in August. So Aaliyah.
Thank you, Dylan. Yeah, so I just want to take some time to give you some information about what you can expect this summer. Many of you have already started your online orientation modules, which is through our Canvas learning system. And that really has all the information you'll need this summer. We offer some additional resources like these webinars. You'll have an appointment with your advisor to go over some of that content. But really everything that you need is in those modules, and you don't necessarily need to worry about getting that done right away. You have time to complete it. But once you do go through each of the modules, you'll complete a quiz to make sure that you're learning the material and you have a good comprehension. And then at the very end, you'll have a to-do item where you'll get to select a registration window, which will be in July. And you can pick what works for your schedule. And you can rest assured that those windows are distributed across the month evenly to all the students who need to register. So if you're in the first window, you don't have priority over the classes. Even if you're in the last window, you'll have same access. So you don't need to panic about getting into that first registration window. The whole month of July and the first week of August, students will be registering. So many of you have done your online orientation and can continue to finish that. The next checklist item that you'll need to do is to take the math placement test and the writing placement test. Now the math one is optional, but we highly recommend that you take the math placement test this time around because there's no cost associated as an incoming student. And once you're ready to take your math class, whether you take it your first year or your second year, you'll need that placement score to put you into the appropriate math level. And depending on what major you're going to be selecting within environmental design will indicate which math class you need to take. So it's a good idea to go ahead and take your math placement test now, and then your writing placement test as you complete all your modules too. The next checklist item is to schedule an appointment with your academic advisor. And many of you have already started to reach out to Dylan and Fernando at the beginning of the summer, and that's great. We highly recommend meeting with your advisor closer to your class registration date because you'll want an opportunity to have your advisors do a schedule check for you just to make sure you've put all the right classes in your shopping cart and that you've balanced your classes out in a way that makes sense and you're not going to have an overwhelming schedule and you really are able to fit in time to go work out, meet with friends, and build that community. The last to-do item that you have is to register for classes. And like I mentioned before, once you've completed your online orientation modules, that will release the opportunity for you to select your class registration window. Next slide. Okay, class registration. So freshmen will automatically be pre-registered for 9 credits. Those 9 credits that you'll see in your schedule once you jump into your class registration window will be your 2 studios that Paul was mentioning. Each of the studios that you'll be taking their first semester are 8-week classes. So you have Environmental Design 1010, which covers our product design major. And then you have Environmental Design 1020, which is architecture. And this is a really great opportunity for you to start being exposed to 2 of our majors that you'll have some 16-week classes and some 8-week classes. And these are really fun studios for you to experience those different disciplines for just 8 weeks. And those studios will be in person. So you'll be with your smaller cohort of students and your faculty, and you'll really get to know everybody in your class and have great feedback from faculty on each of your projects. The next class that you'll be pre-registered for is Environmental Design 1004, which is Introduction to Environmental Design. So that's a large lecture class with your incoming cohort, and it covers basically the history of environmental design and covers, everything that you'll be learning within this major. That class right now, we are optimistic that will be in person. Campus is working on room assignments for large lectures, so we're hoping that that class will also be in person. So those are the classes that you'll already be registered for before your enrollment window opens, and then you'll work with your advisors to register for the remaining credits, which we recommend 15 credits per semester. And there's recommendations in your online orientation materials of which classes to sign up for. There'll be a technology class that's required to take, and then you'll have the option to register for first year writing, general education classes. Depending on what credits you're already coming in with will dictate which classes will be recommended to you to fill the rest of your schedule. Another note is that if we have any transfer students who are joining us on this webinar, you are not pre-registered into any classes because some of your classes that transfer in may cover some of the design classes or some of the general education classes. So we work with you individually to get your customized schedule worked out for you. Some of the resources that I want to make you available to as you're getting closer to your registration window in July is we'll be having another webinar on July 6th to cover time to register for fall 2021 tips and tricks. And that's really going to give you some more detailed information about the classes and what your other options are for filling up your schedule, or if you have questions about minors, double majors. You know, education abroad is definitely later down the road, but if you have those types of questions, we can cover that in our July 6th webinar. We will also have a webinar in August about how to succeed in environmental design, and that will give you an opportunity to meet some of our faculty and also give you a heads up on some of the things that will really help you prepare for the first and second week of classes and how to transition into design school very successfully. Some other resources for registration are you'll be getting an email with an environmental design class registration guide, and that will also give you some details of how to go into the Buff portal and actually select the classes and put them in your shopping cart. Some of the other colleges, schools, and programs are referring to an enrollment essentials guide. And that's just another way of saying registration guide. And so if you hear that from your peers or your friends, that's also what you'll be receiving in your environmental design class registration guide. So those are the same materials. The last item here on this slide is that you'll be receiving next week an email with your studio supplies. And this is always an exciting list to get, but it also can induce some nervousness because some of those supplies may be unfamiliar to some students, and that's completely fine. The reason we're giving you your studio supplies list in advance is so that you can take the summer to start looking for some of the supplies and starting to think about your laptop and computer requirements and such, so that if you want to work this summer and save up for any of those materials, you know in advance what you'll need for this fall. But again, it's not needed that you have a really in-depth knowledge of what each of the supplies are. We can work with you as your advisors to go through what these items are. And in some of our upcoming webinars, we can go through any questions that students may have on what some of these supplies are. Okay, next slide. All right, so this slide gives you a reference for who to contact if you have questions. Now, I want to preface this with there's lots of different offices on campus that can be very helpful, but if you're ever in question of, I don't know who to go to, even if it's housing, financial, or accommodations for class, you can always start with your academic advisor because the campus is large, it can be tricky to navigate. So that's why it's number one on the list. Any questions that you have, go to your academic advisor. We're primarily there for academic questions, but we are also the liaison between the offices and can really give you resources that you need and references that you need, no matter what the topic is. But in case you want some direct references, here's a list of who to contact for if you're trying to figure out anything about your dorm or your roommate assignments or scholarships, or if you need accommodations for classes. Those are the offices that you would reach out to directly, listed on this slide. Okay, next slide. Okay, for any parents or family members that are joining us today, I wanted to let you know about student record privacy. So once students begin classes in the fall in August, their students' records are covered by what's called FERPA, which is the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, where we're not allowed to share any of the students' information with anybody other than the student. So if you're a parent and you really want to be involved in your students' information, whether that's financial or academic, you want to know their grades, if your student is open to that, then what they need to do is fill out a FERPA release form. And that screenshot to the side of the slide is a link from the Office of the Registrar. So the student can go in and fill this out and indicate to the university who they'd like to have access to their student records. They can go to the detail of saying, yes, just academic records, or they can say just financial records. And once they do that, they indicate a password for that person, and that person would have to give that that password to the advisor, whoever they're speaking to prove that they do have access or permission to be privy to that information. So it's good to go ahead and get this set up if you think that you want to be heavily involved as their student goes through the academic career, because the first step we'll say as advisors, if you reach out to us, is we'll need to go ahead and get the FERPA release consent form completed before we can have a detailed conversation. Now I say that, but we can also talk about your student situation in very general terms, and we can still have a good conversation even if this isn't in place. So if for some reason there isn't a FERPA release form on file, we can still say, you know, if your student is experiencing academic difficulty, here are some of the resources that are available. So don't hesitate to reach out. This is just a reminder to maybe get this set up if you think this is something that you want to pursue and have in place before classes begin. The last item on this slide is I'm highly encourage family members to subscribe to the ENVD newsletter. And that's the same newsletter that the students, faculty, and staff receive. So if you want to stay informed about events or any highlights about the program, you are welcome to subscribe to the newsletter and receive that every 2 weeks. Okay, next slide. So that's all of the logistics I wanted to give you. And I just want to say that we are extremely excited to see you in person. And we have a few opportunities this summer to engage with you. Because of the pandemic this last year, we were unable to offer in-person tours. And so this summer, we're opening up tours starting July 2nd, that every Monday, you have the opportunity to come visit campus at large and then also see the environmental design building. So we'll have a registration link on our website if you think you're interested in coming and seeing the environmental design building and your studio space and the rest of campus before you join us in August. I would like you to save the date for ENVD orientation. August 20th and 21st are our college days. So August 20th, we'll meet for almost the entire day and have some really exciting activities. And then on the 21st, we'll have some different opportunities just in the morning. So that'll be a half-day engagement. And then classes begin August 23rd. So that's kind of your roadmap of what to expect for the summer all the way up until classes begin. And then once you're in the program, we have environmental design first year experience. And that's basically a program that's dedicated to helping you transition into college and the design program. And it's a mixture of advising and faculty working together to really make sure that you feel like you're integrated into the program. If you have any questions, you have a great support team to get you through those first few weeks and that first semester as you're trying to navigate everything. And there's also peer mentors and students there to help you as well. Okay, next slide. Okay, that's actually all I have. So we will move into the question and answers. I know we covered a lot of information, so we can go ahead and open it up to everybody to submit specific questions.
As some people have been doing, go ahead and add those to the chat or the Q&A feature so that all individuals can see the questions that are out there. And we're collecting a few, and Aaliyah, I believe we had a few come in as we started that conversation.
Yeah, okay. The first question we received is, when will we get information about the enrollment window? So once you've completed your online orientation, you'll get to select an enrollment window. And I might turn it over to Dylan or Fernando to talk specifically about what that looks like, because you have a to-do list. And once you check things off, it'll unlock ability to select your class registration window.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Aaliyah. So essentially, as you go through that orientation course, and if you aren't sure how far along you are within that orientation space, there are things about campus and your belonging to that space, or things that are unique to each college. And there's a few other to-do items that are part of this larger Canvas class. Once you've completed that, in your to-do items on your Buff portal, you're going to see an item that says register for register for registration. And that will allow you to pick a 2-day window starting on July 15th. And as Aaliyah alluded to earlier, no matter if you pick something at the end of July, early August, or you're in that first week, there is access to the same classes throughout each of your windows. So feel free to pick something specific. And then at the end of the month, you will hear from your advisors regarding a registration appointment to verify that your schedule is ready to go based upon the actions that you've taken during that window. So if you're unable to find it, feel free to get in contact with your advisor on through email, and we will make sure to get you connected with that next step on what you need to do. If you're unsure who your advisor is, we will put a link here to the Buff Portal advising account, and that will be your mainframe area for all things related to your degree in academic advising. You should see a picture right there on your student success team, and that should be myself or Fernando, and we will work with you on getting things started for your fall semester.
Thanks, Dylan. Okay, the next question here we have, would you recommend waiting to take a math class until the student's major is decided? And I'm going to kick that to Dylan or Fernando.
Yeah, I'm happy to take this. So yeah, there is a great question around math and kind of figuring out where that is. Some questions we might throw back to the students to ask about is if they have AP or IB credit coming in, and what level of general education courses they already have. If architecture is a major that you're strongly considering, that math requirement does fulfill any of our majors within the environmental design. So that does allow for us to have some conversation around what might be the best strategy, but some students are more comfortable waiting on math until they've made that major decision. Regardless with that, we do like to see math done before the end of their second year at the very latest. It allows us to really open up some more opportunities for career placement opportunities, internships, and having more of a flexible schedule. So prior to that end of that second year, we'd still like to see math done, but at that point in time, one should know where they are standing in terms of what majors. So we're happy to work through that with you individually. Don't feel pressured if you know other people that are taking math. Everybody's on their own individual journey, and we still end up at that graduation stage together. So we will work through that with you as things come forward.
Thanks, Dylan. The next question, I'm going to be visiting CU this week. Is there any way to get a tour of the campus a bit early? And Fernando, I'm wondering if you can share a little bit about what admissions is offering for campus tours.
Hey, Leah. Yeah, hi, everyone. Fernando here. So admissions is offering campus tours to admitted students and confirmed students. So I'll toss it back to Aaliyah, and in the meantime, I'll look for that information and then I'll post it in the chat here for everyone. And then you can just click on that link and then go ahead and register for a campus tour. And then on that link, you should be able to see what times and dates they're available. So that when you come to campus, you can meet with admissions and they can take you on a tour. So check the chat. I'll be posting it there now.
Thanks, Fernando, for getting that information. Okay, one of the next questions is, how much time can I expect to spend in studio? So logistically, studios are set up so that you have a lecture component and then a recitation. And you'll see that as you're registering for classes, those are the designations. And essentially, you will have an hour or 15 minutes in your lecture, and then you have about 2 hours in your studio. And it's a very fun time because you have part of the experience with your entire cohort, which will be something that is remote for that part of the class, and then the studio will be in person with your smaller class. Paul, did you want to add anything about the studio experience?
Yeah, I can add. I mean, you'll hear a lot of different things about time required in studio. Here's kind of my best advice on approaching a studio, especially first year. It goes quick. 8 weeks goes fast, so you will be, staying on top of it. This is a time management issue. People will talk a lot about time management. Really, the way to approach it is keep up with it. Start early in the when you get done with class. Don't wait to start your studio homework till 9 o'clock at night. You'll hear people talk about, I did an all-nighter. I was in studio till 2 o'clock in the morning. The truth is, in first year, you really never have to spend past about 8:30 at night ever doing a studio project if you do some time management. There is no expectation from instructors that you're going to spend 6 or 8 hours every day on studio. It's the same rule of thumb that we have in all classes, and that is expected on a lab type class like studio is about 2 hours of outside work for an hour of studio. So you're talking about, probably about 12 hours a week, roughly 10, 12 hours a week, roughly outside of class, which is a big chunk of time, but it's definitely manageable. But time management, stay on top of it. That is your biggest thing for studio, and you will be just fine.
Thanks, Paul. Next question has to do with computer recommendations. What type of computer would you recommend? I saw some stuff online about getting a Windows-based rather than Mac. Is there a specific computer within Windows that you would recommend? And also, is it okay to use an iPad to take notes for classes and completing work?
Okay, this is a great question, one that applies to everyone. And actually the answer has changed a little bit. So you can use either a Mac or a Windows computer. The reason why we have been recommending a little bit more on Windows lately is the new versions of the Mac are saying they're not going to support the parallel PC versions anymore on the Mac. And that becomes an issue later on when you get into some of the more advanced programs. If you're in planning and you're going to use GIS programs, they have a problem on the Mac. If you are in architecture, when you get to your junior year, there are some advanced rendering programs that don't work as well on the Mac. And that's why we've been doing that. Now, given that, we do have computer labs, and you'll have the ability, even if you're on a Mac, to use the computer lab or remote login. So where it used to be pretty much whatever you felt comfortable with, we're just giving a little bit of a caveat that there are some advanced programs that don't work as well on the Mac. If you are going to get a PC, I would not get anything less than an i7 processor. For those of you who are looking at PCs, you'll see it. See what that is, that you don't really want less than a Intel i7. Excuse me. You'll see cheaper computers with i5s. Don't do that. It's not worth it. On the Mac side, you probably want a MacBook Pro because you need the processing power to do that. Now, neither one of these things are really required first year, so you can wait. If you already have a computer, you don't need to get a more powerful one right now. And yes, you can use your iPad for taking notes in class.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. And I believe there's a link in the chat that has those specific recommendations that Paul was making. And that lives on our website for first year students. It outlines computer recommendations and all of the studio supplies. So check that out. Okay, next question. How many courses can you take outside of environmental design? Dylan, would you like to answer that one?
Yeah, this is a great question. So I think the best way to kind of think about it is twofold. So in thinking about your degree, 1/3 of your classes are always going to be focused on your major area. So whether that's environmental design classes or specifically the major you're going to declare, 1/3 is going to be on general education courses. So your math and your science and your writing courses, all things, and arts and humanities, social science. These are areas that we have found to be incredibly important to round out a design student. And then 1/3 is going to be more elective based. And that's a little bit more around things like minors and certificates. So when you think about your general degree, there's going to be some things that are going to overlay between those categories. There's going to be some priorities that we have in each of those. So it's really good for you to be meeting with your advisor to really see how much elective space you do have based on the priorities that you might have throughout your time. As it relates to your first year, a majority of our students are in some type of general education course for the first 3 semesters. If you do come in with some AP, IB, or transfer credit, dual enrollment opportunities, etc., that might open up a little bit more flexibility to your schedule on picking some more things that are more in alignment with your interests. What I will say is most in common is that if a student still has a general education area, we will focus on that in the fall. Or potentially another design lecture if we have room available to be able to get you more comfortable with the pace of the design degree. As Paul said, 8 weeks goes really fast. We're not looking for you to be in a multitude of credits that will extend your time too much to really make sure that you hone in on the skills of what it means to be successful as a design student. So the answer is going to be a little bit blurred because it really does depend on each student independently. However, about 1 or 2 classes per semester, you'll see we'll have some active decision making on your end in the first couple of semesters. And then there will be some more room to make some more active choices once you have selected your major and we have kind of a degree pathway forward for you upon completion of that major interest. So again, we'll work with you individually on that. We promise we'll allow some flexibility for you to take some things that are super fun, but also know that design education is a very rigorous lockstep program as well. And we do really pride ourselves in that studio continuation to really hone in on skills for competitive jobs, internships, graduate school, etc. So you'll see some movement in both areas to ensure that you get the most out of your degree here at CU.
Thanks, Dylan. And Fernando, thanks for putting that in the chat. There's a link there so that you can start to peruse some of the popular minors and certificate programs that students like to combine with their major. And it really will be in your first meeting with your advisor to kind of discuss what are your interests and your goals and how will you fit that within your 4-year plan. There's plenty of time to get everything that you're interested in doing to fit into your academic plan. So as long as you're having those conversations early, we can help you get those prerequisites met and make sure that you can achieve everything that you want to while you're at CU Boulder. Those are all the questions I'm seeing that were submitted through the chat. And we just have a few more minutes. If there's any last questions that want to be submitted, I'll give it just a moment here. And while we're waiting for some of those questions to come in, you'll see the email address for Fernando and Dylan are now in the chat too. So if you have some follow-up questions, you can email them directly. And also I'd like to just remind you to register for the next webinar, which is July 3rd. So you can visit our website. I think it's been placed in the chat here, but let me find it again, where you can see the remaining webinars for the summer and also some other general information for first-year students on our website here.
Aaliyah, just to clarify, it's actually July 6th, so it'll be right after the 4th of July, but no worries. We've had a lot of dates thrown at us recently. So July 6th, that Tuesday, we've been doing them Tuesdays at noon, so it's a really good rule of thumb. And the next 2 will be right away at the beginning of the month. So it's a really easy way to remember about every 4 weeks or so. One other thing, if you're not familiar with Zoom, our chat does go away once you sign off. So if you have any links that you would like to click on and make sure you can move back to, now is also a great time to click on those links to make sure you have them up on your computer screen before our chat does dissolve once the webinar is complete.
We did just get another question, so I'll just put it on, maybe I'll just read it out loud. Do you need to complete the placement test before you can choose your enrollment window?
answer-
And the answer to that is no.
Great. Yeah, go for it.
You can choose your enrollment window, and as you're kind of waiting to take your placement exams, you can choose a registration window first, and then you can go on and take your placement exams as needed.
One caveat to that, as Fernando alluded to, is no, you do not necessarily need to, but you do need those scores in order to register for the classes. So there is kind of a hybrid in between of when you select that, make sure you utilize that appropriately. One common question we do get within our first year advising team is, what if I don't get the math score that I want? What is my next step? There is a proctored exam that will happen later on this summer that allows you to retake that exam, and that information should be online for you through the orientation platform. But Fernando and I can work with you individually should that happen. And that if that is a designated priority for you to get math out of the way. I know some people feel it's super fresh in my mind. Can I get that requirement completed if I need to? So we can talk through that strategy together. Additionally, there is a pre-calculus placement exam and a calculus placement exam. So there will be different conversations for each of you depending on what your math exposure is. If you are more interested in statistics and you have a different major interest that only requires statistics, that does not need a math placement. But again, that is going to be dependent upon what major you choose in our program and some variability there. So please talk with us before we have that conversation around what math is needed. The last thing we want you to do is take multiple maths for different requirements if that wasn't actually needed for your degree. And we want to be really strategic about every class that you do enroll into. So short story, meet with us first before you decide on enrolling in math. Okay.
Dylan, just a quick follow-up to that. The writing supplements or the writing placement you will need to take because we are looking for you to place into writing 1150. That's first year writing. So WRTG 1150 would be that requirement. An alternative to the WRTG class is the ENVD 1150 class. So when you're registering for that first year writing class, it's either or. You're either going into ENVD 1150 or the WRTG 1150. The foreign language, that one is not required, but if you see yourself studying a foreign language, such as Italian, Spanish, etc., then that would be a placement test that you will eventually want to take. And then one of the other ones is the ALEX. That one is for chemistry, I believe, and that one is not required in our program.
Another question came in about math. So if I want to take math later on, should I take the math placement exam now? It's a very good question. Your math placement exam score is open for 1 year. So we recommend taking math before you go on to your junior year. So it's a little bit of a tricky window, but we still recommend taking it now because you'll be registering for classes your spring semester, your first year for the second year, and your math placement test score will still be active for you to register for your second year. So the short answer is yes, we still recommend you taking the math placement now because it'll still allow you to register for classes within your first year and a half at CU Boulder. If you feel like you need to talk about your specific case though, where you have your 4-year academic plan already in mind and you really want to wait to take your math until your junior or senior year, I'd recommend just meeting with your advisor to double check on that because there definitely are some scenarios where it may make sense to wait on your math placement, although that is something we encourage most students to do now. Okay, let's see, there's another question here. If I have a passing AP score for AP language, I don't need to take a writing course, correct? And that AP credit covers the writing requirement. Dylan, do you want to cover that one?
Yes, this is a great question. There is a difference between AP language and AP literature. So please look online there specifically to address that. But yes, AP language does work for the writing requirement. AP literature is considered an English course. So we will work with you specifically on that. If you have not submitted your scores through College Board to us though, we may still find us recommending that because we won't have those scores on record. So we need to meet with you and verify that everything has gone through appropriately so that you are indeed have that credit appropriately. So if you know that those scores are coming in, meet with us to ensure that everything looks good on our end so we can verify that you're ready to move on to that next general education. But it does take a couple of weeks for those scores to come in.
Thanks, Dylan. Another question, is there a difference between a writing supplement and a writing placement test? Dylan or Fernando, do you want to cover that?
Yeah, there's no difference. Sorry if I said writing placement, but it's writing supplement. That's the only one that you need to take is the writing supplement. Sometimes it's referred to as a writing placement, but as long as you take it and you place into writing 1150, that's what we're looking for.
Thanks, Fernando. Okay, those are all the questions we've received at this point. Paul, do you have anything else you want to add?
Big thing I just want to add is, don't worry about being prepared. Everyone's going to do great. We really, I think one of the unique things about